joining our last minute exclusive sessions about the newest changes with the App Store. We have an open chat. So during this discussion, we have an open Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them, and please write your hi or hello to cheer up a little bit our speakers today. To introduce everyone, I'm your host and moderator, and also be a part of this discussion. I'm Vitaly, co-founder and CEO of Adapti. We have 5 more speakers today, including Andrei, a co-founder and CEO of FunnelFox. John, should I call you a C more? Or like, what's your role at Singular? Like your
VP Insights.
VP Insights of Singular. We have Kirill, who is let's say a master or a wizard of web funnels, and who is a leader of Web Funnels Club on LinkedIn. Subscribe if you haven't yet. We have Robbie, who is director of sales at Puddle. Puddle does a great job regarding web payments, and especially for mobile. And we have Olha, who's going to join us in a couple of minutes. We have some, as I said, some last minute troubles, and she's a wild product manager who's going to chat also with us about alternative payments. So the mission for this chat is to discuss the latest third-party payments in the App Store. And so this topic was with us for quite a long time, right? I think I first heard it maybe 5 or 4 years ago when Epic started all this court process in the United States and in the European Union. A couple of years ago, we had some changes in EU. So basically now, if you run your business in European Union, especially in Netherlands, and in some other countries, you were allowed to use third-party payments, but with a lot of screamers from Apple. So as far as I know, and as far as we track at Adapti, no one really used it. However, if we were about to sell books, like online ebooks, you could use third-party payments without those screamers, but it was a super rare case, right? And yesterday we had a court decision from the US, which now allows everyone in the App Store immediately to redirect a customer from a normal native paywall in any iOS application to a third-party website where a customer can activate subscription, right? Which is extremely wild. So it never happened before in the App Store. It's something extremely new, and it could potentially change all the rules, especially in user acquisition, which we're going to discuss a little bit later today in the mobile. And in this panel discussion, we're going to discuss a couple of really interesting, at least to me, topics. So the first topic is actually what has changed, right? So what is actually new? What are the payments with the App Store? And I'd like to start with Robbie. What do you think about those third-party payments? How do you think about payment methods being used in the mobile, cards, Apple Pay, PayPal, wallets, or whatever? How developers will adapt third-party payment methods, and what do you think is really important to note here about charging customers?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, so we've been following it pretty closely for quite a few years now, haven't we? And I think a bit skeptical at times when there's a judge ruling and then how will Apple reply. So this one feels like a much bigger milestone, especially since they've updated the guidelines today. I think in terms of payments outside the App Store, I think from a developer's perspective, the App Store is very underrated or underappreciated in terms of what they actually do from a payments perspective. So I think no one's really talking about payment acceptance or handling sales tax or local payment methods in different markets, because they often don't really need to, because the App Store just covers everything when you're selling globally. So I think some of the main things to look out for is low friction to pay on the checkout. So Apple Pay is super popular on mobile. That's kind of like one of the top payment methods used on the web. And then a lot of app developers are targeting kind of the US as their main market. So they're covered on, PayPal, credit card, Amex, having local currency of USD. As soon as you do want to go more global and expand your product to APAC, South Korea, different markets in Europe. Having local currencies actually really helps with successful payments. Not just the customer experience, but also that the customer's bank accepting the transaction. So there's a couple of things to think about there. So it's good to kind of see like all that good stuff you get from the App Store. It obviously is expensive for 30%, but they do cover a lot in terms of like the payments infrastructure on the back end. So it's definitely one to think about when you're opening up to the web and going global. Like, do you have the right currency set up for your main markets you're selling to? Local payment methods super important, but having like local entities where you're selling to is a good thing to think about further down. So yeah, lots to think about basically, but we could get into that a bit more. But at a high level, I think the App Store is very, very underappreciated at times, and there's a lot that they cover, which is one to think about when you do open up to the web for the first time.
When we chat about this new judgment rule, we mostly chat about the US, right? So they only sell in US dollars, which is cool. But regarding taxes, what kind of taxes does developer need to pay in the US? Is this kind of VAT or sales tax or in different states? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
It can vary by state. It can
totally
vary by state. So you can have 30 different tax regimes across the United States. So it's kind of like the United States of Europe almost in some sense, because there can be variances there. So if you don't have a platform that can manage that and understand that and work with that, you could have some challenges.
Yeah.
Do you know if you need to like sign up in a HMRC or how you call the US tax organ? Do you need to sign up there and report directly into each state, or how does it work?
Yeah, John's pretty spot on. So every state operates almost like a country. If we're thinking of the Europe or selling into India or Australia, they all have their own thresholds for how many sales you're doing a year to when you need to be registered. And then it's the case of actually like registering in each state, going through a lot of like red tape, jurisdiction, legislation to get set up, and then it's the filing it, collecting it from the customer. There's a preference for like tax added onto the checkout versus tax inclusive pricing. The US prefer it to be tax added on at the end. So there's a whole bunch of things to think about. I think when you're just getting started, it's easy to think, oh, we're below thresholds right now, so we're okay. But the thresholds are changing quite a lot. New states are making tweaks as well. So there's a bit of like monitoring you need to do as well. So one to look out for. The US makes things a bit complicated.
It's interesting that let's say you have an European entity or any other entity and you still sell in the United States. So even in that case, you need to sign up or register in different states where you sell, and you need to file your reporting in different states for taxes, right? Which sounds crazy because let's say I'm in Berlin, right? I have a German entity. I need to report my taxes in Germany, and then I need to file taxes in each state where I have at least one sale in the United States, which is it like 51 states, right?
50. It's not, Canada is not a 51st state.
No, I didn't mean it. So 50 states, and you need to file in 50 states in most cases, which is crazy.
Yeah, and all those developers who are like, yay, payments, I can take it myself, 30% extra, are like, holy shit, all this work. Wow, will I even do it?
And let's say you still want to try third-party payments, which for some customers, it may be reasonable, right? What is actually the difference between Apple Pay, because this is probably the next thing that comes after Apple in-app purchases, and actually Apple in-app purchases system? Does anyone know what's the difference and how similar are they?
Well, Apple Pay is just a payment system, right? I mean, and it's going to take a percentage just like a credit card would take, right? I think it's something like 2%, maybe up to 5%. I'm not clear on those details specifically, but that's not a huge deal. It's like any other credit card that's going to take some small percentage. It's much less than 30%. Let's put it that way.
You know, what I've heard is if you can implement Apple Pay, the whole process of payment could look extremely seamless to the standard in-app purchases system. And what I've heard, that the engine for Apple Pay is much more newer than the old legacy in-app purchases system. It works faster, some people I know, they already implemented it a little bit, breaking Apple's rules, but they tested an app system and Apple Pay, and they said that the speed and the conversion rates for Apple Pay are often higher than for native in-app purchases. Have you heard anything about it? Well, I might be the one, right?
From Paolo's side, the main difference with Apple Pay, if you're going direct, is you are the merchant. You're not using a reseller, which is the App Store.
Yeah.
If you're a US business and using Apple Pay on the web in the US, then it's a domestic transaction, and the friction is still pretty low, and it's the same experience with the customer. But if you're a European, if we go back to the example of you're based in Berlin, selling to 40% of your customers are the US, you're creating that cross-border transaction through Apple Pay. So there's chances where you can have drop-off in conversion there. But beyond that, it's a broadly similar experience, which is good from the customer's perspective.
Yeah, from my understanding, Apple Pay gets paid by Visa or MasterCard, by these transactional networks. And in reality, their take rate is probably around 0.2, 0.3%, isn't it? I have no idea. I'm just curious about the case where, let's say, these changes will find some huge adoption rates, and most customers will switch from Apple in-app purchases to Apple Pay. So in theory, Apple's commission could drop from 30% to 0.2%.
Yeah, but just think about this for a second. Like if you're Apple and this happens, right? So Apple's going to appeal, but they say they're going to appeal. Whether they actually do or not, I don't know. It was a devastating judgment, so it's going to be really hard to walk back from this. I mean, literally, an Apple executive was told you were lying on the stand, and we're going to refer that matter to the U.S. attorney for further prosecution. So it's bad for Apple. They may not even appeal from this. Also, if they look at the world situation, they look at the EU, they look at the United States, and they look around, this is not something that is just popping up and can go down. It's coming up everywhere, right? So what is Apple going to do? They're probably not going to keep a 30% commission. They're going to fight fire with fire. They're going to say, okay, now we're in a competitive environment. Now we have to provide a competitive product. Now we have to actually reduce this 30% to 20% or 10% or 15% or whatever at some point. And then developers and publishers have hard decisions to make. Do I want to own this infrastructure? Do I want to own the customer? That's important. That's a big question. The person who owns a billing relationship owns the customer. And that's really important if you want to grow and expand to maybe other apps, expand what you're doing, services, other stuff like that. But at some point, you have to do that math and say, okay, I can just use this existing infrastructure that works really, really well. People trust Apple. Who do they trust me? Do they even know me? It's one step, double click on the side. There we go, done. And it's only 10%. So there's really, or 15% or something. Or do I want to own that whole infrastructure? This is going to be a very interesting challenge for people to have to decide. If you're Netflix, if you're Amazon with Kindle and other things like that, if you're Spotify, it's a real easy decision. You're a big corporation. You have the resources. You're already taking payments. You know how to do this stuff. You're set up as a legal entity. You have all the accountants you need, all that stuff. If you're an indie developer, you think, will I do it? Will I not do it? It's not slam dunk. It's good for developers. It's good for publishers. It's going to introduce more competition. That's exactly why the court case was brought. It's going to reduce costs and improve services, but it's not going to be a slam dunk decision which way you're going to go.
Yeah, I think like when I think about what type of customers can, in theory, benefit from these changes, we definitely can say that companies like Netflix and Spotify, it's 100% no-brainer, I think, for them, because they didn't use an in-app purchases system because of 30% tax rate, right? So in their case, they lose nothing. So it does make sense for them to implement it. But let's say we have some other big companies who already use in-app purchases. And here I would say we have either tier one companies, let's say OpenAI or Strava or Komoot or whatever. And then you have a long tail of everyone else. I only chat about in-app subscription companies, not games, right? Let's take an example of ChatGPT application. So they make roughly 1 billion per year in revenue from in-app purchases, only for iOS. Do you think in their case, it does make sense to switch to third-party payments?
So I've talked to a lot of people who have done this sort of stuff, gone to a web to app type of funnel, gone to web onboarding so that they can get a prior relationship with their user, player, customer before actually getting the app, and then can establish independent billing. Basically, if you can do this and you can take payments on the web, and I'm talking even prior to this judgment, there's about a 30% bump in revenue. 30% of $1 billion, which by the way is growing really, really quickly, is a lot. So that's a yes. And it's also a yes for many others as well. Do you want 30% more revenue? The question becomes more interesting when Apple returns fire and comes back and says, okay, here's our competitive product. Now that we don't have a monopoly anymore on payments, on in-app stuff, here's what we'll do on a competitive product. The sooner Apple does that, the sooner Apple just realizes, hey, this is happening, this is going on, we need to deal with this. We can't, just put our heads in the sand anymore, and starts to deliver that, the better for Apple and the better for the ecosystem.
What do you think they can introduce?
Lower prices.
Well,
you mean Apple?
Yeah,
what Apple can increase?
What can they do, right? Because prior to this meeting, I read some statistic about how important is the App Store for Apple revenue, and try to guess what percentage of Apple revenue comes from App Store. What's your best guess?
It's like 60 billion revenue per year that they earn from App Store. It's huge for Apple. It's a huge amount of money. And what they can do is I think that the distribution of apps is still like the most important value that Apple has in the App Store, and they can introduce some like new guidelines. They already updated guidelines according to this ruling, but they can update it once again, and with some like tricky rules, using, for example, Apple Pay, paywalls or something like that. But I think that Apple is definitely going to do with that something, because it's like they losing a huge amount of money. And what else they can do? Right now they send like notification for app developers about like negative reviews related like unfair charges or like unclear prices or something like that, and they can just reject some or remove some apps, like, but do it selectively, not just in scale. And I think I don't think that it will be they will scale this approach, because it's right, it will look strange for this corporation, like for this big corporation, and they actually they have like two levers from my perspective. One is the like review process, and they can do something with the review process, and the second, Apple Pay, they can like introduce some new rules of using Apple Pay on web paywalls or something like that. This is like my thoughts on that.
The other interesting thing here is that Apple still owns the doorway, the gateway to the App Store. Right? So like, guess what? They can reject any app for any reason, right? Yeah, it's a bad experience. You're doing something shady. Are you going to go to court about that? Right. So Apple still has leverage here. Apple still has some things it can do if it sees some things that it doesn't like.
True,
they will do stricter review, because now they will have all risks from these third-party tools, and it's not only that they will control it to block apps from using third-party payments, but they should also handle all risks and negative reviews. So, and they will change their guidelines, and it will be stricter, because it will be a lot of dark patterns from the market, and they should somehow control it. So definitely review process will be changed and will be much stricter. But I believe that they should somehow negotiate the decision and find some compromise and lower the commission, or there are different options how they can change monetization. So they can lower commission for everyone, for example, from 30% to, I don't know, to 20%, just to don't leave an option to go for third-party tools, because there is a lot of operations, taxes, refunds, and so on. They can lower commission only for third-party tools, because, for example, in Europe, they implemented 27%, which is huge. Now probably they will find some compromise, like let's make it 20% or 15% for external payment methods, something like that. And they also can change Apple developer agreement and like raise the price for annual price for having Apple developer account. They can implement new different programs with different thresholds, like you should pay higher license fee or commission, depends on different parameters like revenue, if you use third-party payment methods or not, something like that. So there are many different options.
I think, like, honestly, that Apple has a couple of options here. I think, as you mentioned, that the first option would be to lower the commission price for everyone, to sort of to make it like a premium merchant of record or something like this. I think, like, my bare calculations show that if they lower commission to 15%, basically 2 times for everyone, I think everyone will just stay with Apple because of the seamless experience. I think the second option is they're gonna stick with the original 30%, but they're gonna make the review process, like you said, incredible hard. So they're gonna punish a developer for every negative review. They will just make it a nightmare to pass the App Store review and to publish a new update. So basically, instead of publishing update every week or two, you're going to publish it every quarter in the best case, right? I don't believe that they're going to raise the Apple fees for the developer account, because now it's $100 or maybe $1,000. So it's like they're not going to make it like 10K or 100K or something like this. I think it's not possible. But I think what they can introduce is something metered-based pricing, alternative to revenue sharing. Those could be MAU-based pricing or download-based pricing with some exceptions. Something like, if you've never used in-app purchases, you pay $0. If you want to charge basically, if you charge your customers no matter how, you're going to pay per download. If you steal Amazon or Google app and you never use any kind of payments inside your application, you pay $0. So I think it's like they can introduce many fees, but I think they've been thinking about this for the last 5 years once they got this attack from Epic. And I think, honestly, we're going to see in the next 1 or 2 weeks something's going to happen from their side. What do you think?
I think it takes some time for them because it's a big corporation, and I wouldn't say that they will do something aggressively and quickly, because from the first thing, that they just lost the huge deal, and they can get another collective claim if they would be extremely hard on the app developers. So I assume that they will act more subtly and smoothly right now. And in terms of different models of emissions and payments, I think it will take some time for them because they are not so quick.
I think we need to underline what Kirill brought up. And Kirill brought up, already in the App Store as it existed, there's people who are massive scammers and cheaters, and you're on some subscription system for $5 a week, and you finally check your credit card statement 3 years later, and you discover you spent $7,000 on some stupid utility app that you never wanted. This is going to open up for the wild west. And there's going to be some sob stories, and Apple's going to share that and say, you know what, we tried to stop this from happening. Sorry, world. But the government made us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah, I had the idea that Apple probably had opportunity to negotiate with government that they can control the web payments. It's not only related to web payments in iOS, but also web to app, and so they can control it and guarantee that the user experience will be smooth and fair enough, yeah, and reliable. And but I don't know, probably they will play this card. Who knows?
Yeah. John is really active in the chat. Thank you so much for this. So you've answered most of the questions in text. So we got a really nice question. What's the longevity of web-to-app funnels, even if Apple lowers the fees to be more competitive? Right. So basically, how I see it now is that you have three options to monetize your application, right? So you have native iOS with in-app purchases, you have native iOS with third-party payments and redirection, and you still have web-to-app. I think, Andrei, what do you think about the web-to-app future and how how it can be affected by all of these changes?
I think it's kind of can take positive effect on web to app and web funnels because this is let's say up to web is going to is a term that's is emerging right now, up to web. Yeah, it's with the web payments inside the app. It doesn't resolve the biggest challenge that app developers has with attribution, and yeah, it can impact on app economics in app campaigns, in app traffic positively, but still the attribution isn't resolved. And the web to app provides you a lot of opportunity, a lot of flexibility in terms of payment providers and so on. But also the biggest lever in web to app is attribution, because you have all signals immediately in your account, and you can optimize your app campaign quickly with a low budget and so on, which we still don't have in iOS apps and so on. So, but in the same time, in the web funnels, I think that this up to web can be additional way to increase your revenue, and I think they will see soon a lot of experiments with soft paywalls, for example, on the web funnels, or you can score, for example, somehow which segments of your audience most likely convert to the subscription. You can show hard paywall, or you can show soft paywall, or even skip paywall for users who are less likely to convert on the web funnel, and you can build them and charge them inside the app and still leverage the attribution and save on the commission on the web payments.
It's interesting that we used to have web to app, but now we have app to web, right?
Yeah, yeah, something that's the combination of web to app plus app to web probably will be the game changer in terms of the strategy of growth.
Yeah. I think we had a question about the technical implementation of third-party payments, right? I think I can start a little bit here. So basically, as I see, you have two options. So the option number one is you have your normal native paywall. You add a little button, something like buy with alternative payment methods, buy with card, buy with Puddle, whatever. Then a user clicks on this button or taps on this button. He then redirected to Safari, not to in-app browser, but to Safari, to another application, where you show a checkout screen or your landing page. Let's say you use a default checkout page made on Puddle with all the payment options available. Am I right, Robbie?
Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah, so it could be a web view or a Safari link where the payment options are embedded in as well. So I think that step is really important for friction and customer trust as well. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So during this stage, when you open a web page, you pass some user ID, which you can like it could be your server ID or hard user ID, like an email. Then you make a purchase from this checkout page. Your user makes a purchase from this checkout page, and then using deep linking, you redirect the customer back, passing some information about like entitlement, for example. And then in your application, you catch this deep link and parse the information and translate it into the premium access. Right? Sounds a little bit complicated, but technically, I think it could be done really, really straight in a straightforward way. I think a much more native approach here. So Apple just released the new rules today, a couple of hours ago, and in 0.3.1.3, something like this, they say that you can use. Yeah, it was quite precise, right?
Yeah, pick one.
Yeah, you can use you can use payments right inside the native interface, as far as I understand. So they never mentioned that you need to redirect the customer to Safari, which we saw yesterday. So I think what's the ideal case is when you just literally replace standard in-app purchases flow with Apple Pay.
That's big. That's really
big. And that's insanely seamless, right? It's just as
right
as a
there.
normal. Yeah. So basically, you change nothing with your UI, with your user experience. The customer just clicks on the same tile on your paywall. Let's say monthly subscription for $10, and instead of showing standard or triggering standard in-app purchases dialog, you trigger standard Apple Pay dialog, and that's it.
Very cool.
Huge.
Yeah. So seamless and like absolutely native experience, and and probably it's like there was a question about the conversion rate, the web paywalls and so on, but with this flow, I think probably we don't see any any difference in conversion rates at all.
There will be some difference if there is no Apple Pay payment method turn on in the phone and the device. So in this case, you should ask for another payment method, but it's the only one. If there is Apple Pay payment cards, then it looks very similar to the standard in-app purchase from the user experience.
Exactly. And then during this process, as a developer, you get customers' data because you must send an invoice and you need to do it yourself, or again, use Puddle for taxes, invoicing, and this kind of stuff. So you get a customer's address, you get a customer's email, because it's not like with Apple in-app purchases where you get anonymized data. You get the real email because you need to send the real invoice. So I don't know how it's going to work, right? Because it goes against Apple's privacy stuff and so on.
But they've been told that they cannot maintain that they cannot police developers, publishers' communications with their customers. That's part of something that's in the judgment. I think we have to bring Olha in. You're very polite, and we're probably missing something obvious that you want to talk about.
I think in general, this is Wild West now. It will get more and more clear as people get stumbled upon problems and everything. But I want to highlight, this is not free money, but this is an exciting way to make more money in different ways that were not available before. So for companies that, for example, before had a hard paywall and it wasn't possible for them or it wasn't legal for them, now they can. Those things, how to process a payment and how to make it look frictionless is clear now. And I think you guys have shared it a lot. Apple Pay does create the biggest conversion, both on web. On web, it's 60% of people use Apple Pay if it's available, which is amazing. So we've sorted out that is working, but we're not looking at all the other things we can do with this now. Special offers, because we have their email now and we know exactly what they did and we control all the payment methods and we can communicate with them. I think there will be some sort of risk on compliance side, but this is not Europe, right? This is the US. So it has to be clear that the user did give us the right to contact them. So that's going to have to be, sorted out. But I think it's going to be really, really exciting for other kind of stuff that we're not discussing yet.
It's interesting that what if you get the real user email and address, right, during payment, can you use it for the attribution?
Of course, you should use it for attribution. Of course, it's not like explicit way, in hashed, yeah, and yeah, sure, and it will increase your accuracy of attribution and help you to optimize the campaign quickly. I think it's like we have a question in the chat about attribution. I think it's it was to cover it. How does it work in general? Yeah, so probably it's not enough just integrate Facebook SDK because the payment process is going on the website. So yeah, from my perspective, you need to integrate conversion API if you talk about Facebook, and just push back events to add account from your like server to server integration, and this is it, and everything will work smoothly.
You know, one thing we haven't talked about is what this might do to ad prices, because if indeed a significant number of app publishers, maybe it's the larger ones, maybe it's the bigger ones, move to this, and if indeed they do have about a 30% bump in their own recognized revenue, they can afford to bid more. They can afford to bid more. They can get higher quality users from higher quality networks. What impact will this have on prices for the ecosystem as a whole? That's something that we're going to find out over the next few months.
Yeah, it's a great point. And in addition to that, they can get payouts faster and non wait.
Very good point. You don't have to wait a whole month for
Exactly,
it.
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That can increase your velocity of user acquisition.
And you can test
Yeah,
whatever
sure.
price you want. That is something that a lot of people are like, you increase it a little bit to not be the standard, either this or this that Apple makes you. Already you increase your conversions. Those conversions pay for all of your costs for, you know, all the other things you'll have to employ. And then I think what we're missing also here is you will have a set up gateway, like everything will be set up now for you as a developer. So for all of those people who were before like, oh yeah, we don't have web capabilities, it's too complex, web to app is complex, they might actually consider looking into web to app because might as well, you know, they plug into tools, you know, they don't even have to have a development team. They already have everything integrated because they've done this exercise. So I think it's gonna actually trickle a lot of interesting changes when it comes to acquisition.
Just to build on that, that's a very important point. You can set your own price points. Now, there used to be very limited price points on iOS, right? You had like 100 or something like that. Now you have like 1,000, but it's a set number. That's an interesting thing. You could change your price for whatever you want to change it to. $10,000. You know, I mean, maybe that's crazy, but hey, that's possible.
10K
but also,
per week.
What's that?
10K per week.
Exactly.
That's what we're gonna see, right?
That better be a gold card.
I'm pretty sure, right?
but it's not just pricing, it's also productization. How do you set up your app? How do you bundle your app? Do you bundle it with a physical product? Do you bundle it with some other things? You were put into kind of a straitjacket. It was a pretty good straitjacket, but you're put into kind of a straitjacket with the App Store. Now maybe your app is bundled with some other things outside the App Store or outside mobile even. You have a blank canvas. You can create whatever you want to create.
Yeah, on the pricing side as well, we're seeing a lot with our customers who are kind of like
Golden App is back. Oh, sorry, I saw that in chat.
Yeah, isn't it? A lot of customers like testing even the move to B2B. So say if they're a kind of design tool on the App Store, there's a really good use case to sell to teams even, or small like teams of designers. With that pricing flexibility, you can do, you know, team-based, seat-based pricing. It opens up a whole new potential vertical, which we've seen a few do already, which has been really cool.
I think John mentioned a really important thing, that people, like, the margin will grow, right? And people will be able to bid more. So I think the actual winner from all of these things are the ad networks.
Again.
Yep.
because yeah, like, people will not stop acquiring customers in ad networks, and they just be ready to pay more. And probably if you use some dark patterns, and if it's going to be much harder to unsubscribe actually, because you will need to build your own subscriber center, or instead of going to Apple settings, you're going to find a mess somewhere to find a custom subscription center to cancel your subscription, or go to your bank and request.
But FTC sale stands and it's April.
Yeah.
It still has to be as easy to unsubscribe as it has been to subscribe. So I think that's not going to help here. But overall, it is true that web retains a bit better, also because it's a bit harder to unsubscribe. But that's gone anyway, especially in the US.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
You don't have just one place to go. Where are all the pinprick holes in my bank account? Okay, I could just go to the App Store and I go to the Apple interface for that, and I could see all of them. Now they're spread across 15 different places. Holy mother, this is going to be challenging. And so is it really easy? So you're going to go to your credit card, just cancel payment on that one. Their credit card is going to love this.
Yeah, I think making it as easy as possible to cancel is super important. So if you're setting this up online, I think with the App Store, it's so easy just to see, like, here's everything I'm paying on the App Store. But with the web, like replying to that emails, knowing that what you paid for in the past, having a portal to link to have an easy option to click to cancel. So I think there's a bit of extra work just to make sure the customer experience is, when they want to cancel, they can. Because when people don't set up and then they scale on the web, that's when they can get bit with really high chargebacks, because the customer is trying to find an order and can't cancel it, and kind of stings them later down the line. So getting that set up is super important as well.
Agree. Yeah.
But on the flip side, it's a really good opportunity to own retention a bit more as well from the developer's perspective. So
Yeah, that's true.
building in really good cancellation flows, collecting feedback when they want to cancel, offering them 50% off their next plan, or pausing their plan for 3 months if they're traveling. There's just so much more you can own when you got it on the web, which can really help retain customers and bring them back, or pause their plan and easier win back. So yeah, just getting more control there is like a flip side if you set up the right stuff as well. So it's kind of like two flips to the coin.
What do you guys think about the user experience of this? Because there has been a notion that on web you can charge as much as $60 per subscription for an app they've never seen, right? But then on app, people are generally not really keen to pay more than etc. amount. Like now we will be able to see app subscriptions go up as I don't know, 50, 45, 35. How do you think this will help? Because we come in with this notion that, on web subscription rates are higher, or conversion rate is much better on web, but they will almost see no difference, users. I mean, how will this work then for the users? Will we have to quickly validate or invalidate that it works in fact? Because I think very quickly people realize it's not 30% off, it's not free money, but we have to become more creative than just charge on web instead of app, because for the user it will be the same, harder to cancel. If your merchant name doesn't match with your ad name, good luck sorting that one out. A lot of friction there. How do you think it will work for the user?
And that's true in a lot of cases, by the way.
Yes, that's very important. If you're an app owner and you're going to set up Stripe or whatever, make sure the name there is roughly the same as your app. Thanks.
I think we're going to get airline pricing for apps, by which I mean no two people on an airplane have paid the same price. So you're going to have this person is in at this price. Oh, great. Awesome. That person said, no, well, here's the other price or something. So you're going to get people paying different amounts for the same thing.
Yeah. So that's actually maybe not that bad, because you definitely can get a higher margin, right? But you can also hyper personalize the pricing for each user segment, right? So you can convert more.
If you don't mind any brand damage when that starts getting out on social.
Yeah, exactly. But I think regarding brand damage, it's more for the larger customers. Yeah, it's if you're too big, right? And all right, if you're like in tier 1, top 10 subscription apps or games, right? You're probably never going to do this. But if you're in a long tail of applications, tens of thousands of apps, or hundreds of thousands, I think most of them just don't care, because people still do pricing experiments. Maybe not that aggressive, but still, you want to do it.
Someone's made a comment about tracking web subscriptions. I think this is a really important point that people don't realize when they're scaling is, there's no sensor tower for the web, or there's no app magic. Once you're scaling on the web, you have...
It's a good point.
Good point, yeah.
You've got anonymity and privacy of your growth and your revenue.
Yes.
You're scaling and being really successful, and then 5 copycats can see your growth and build a build a similar product. So it's great in two ways, because on the flip side, you've got that anonymity, but also what insights can you find to see like what's trending in the market, what app is being really successful. So I think it's good for the market, but I think it's an unknown a lot of developers aren't used to when they're seeing how they compare against their peers.
Yeah, I think I saw Kirill recently published how do you analyze over web funnels, right? Maybe you can share something.
Remember, what do you mean getting web funnels?
I mean, if you find some web funnels, web to app funnels, and you want to analyze how much revenue does it generate,
Okay.
how do you do it?
So no, it's difficult. So you can just find some proxy metrics like similar web traffic. You can find some number of creatives in Meta or TikTok, number of new creatives. So there is some data on in its libraries on European Union. So you should not Meta, all ad networks should provide information on impressions data for European Union and on reach data, so you can build some correlations between this reach in European Union and marketing spend. So then multiply by average ROAS and calculate some revenue. So, but not clear right way to calculate and estimate the revenue.
All right, maybe
Yeah, it's tricky.
the last topic to discuss, if we won't have any more questions in the chat, of course, is about the user acquisition, right? We briefly covered that there are three new revenue streams: native iOS with third-party payments and web to app, but we barely discussed the attribution, right? How do you think the new payments methods could affect the unit economy of the application, right? Probably CAC will go up, but what do you think about the LTV versus CAC ratio? Like basically, will we, to match the growing CAC, yeah, you're saving commission, but CAC always growing, right? And will we see the increase in the average subscription price with all of these changes? What do you think? How does it affect the unit economy, the average price, and the break-even or profitability?
It's a super interesting question. I mean, I think everybody can kind of guess at it. I mean, my guess is, will prices go down? I mean, I'm making more money. Can I afford to sell at a lower price and still make more money? Or am I just going to say, hey, I'm keeping the price where it was and my margins are higher? That's a decision that every app publisher is going to have to make on their own. And they're going to make that from a variety of different perspectives. We see it already in the existing ecosystem, where there's times where apps are full on acquisition mode. And there's times where we're going to make money. And so acquisition is dialed way back. Where are you in your app lifecycle? Do you need cash right now? We talked about, wasn't it Andre who talked about, now I'm getting my cash back quicker. So that accelerates my cycles, it accelerates my learnings. Also with web versus mobile and ATT and everything like that. So you're getting quick data back and you're getting quick money. So that's I mean, mobile's already the fastest ecosystem on the planet for adaptation and improvisation and optimization of campaigns and growth and everything like that. This is just going to add fuel to that fire. But what apps do with the extra, if there is extra, that's going to depend on where they are, what they want to do, what they want to achieve.
Yeah, but overall, I think that OTV is going to rise and increase, because just because of not only lower payment commission, but mostly due to higher revenue retention.
Mm-hmm.
And if Apple wouldn't introduce anything in terms of cancellation flow or something like that, so we'll see increase in LTV just because of high retention rate. And of course, it's will increase bids in auctions, but more and more competition will be in the user acquisition area. So yeah, I think it's Probably we will see like increasing the first time, but in long term, I think it will be like balanced.
Yeah. I think in the short term, because you get more margin and more profit to reinvest into acquisition, we're gonna see the CAC rising, but then it's gonna be plateau for some time, and then eventually the price will go up a little bit. So it's gonna be balanced and normalized eventually, maybe in a year or so.
It really depends on your app as well, like how much intent is there to purchase, because you're going to be testing conversions, that trade-off with the saving in App Store fees and then all the other benefits. But then what are your renewal rates on the web compared to App Store? And that's going to be that LTV to compare. But I think it just requires a bit of testing on what's the intent of your buyers, and are they more open to paying on the web versus App Store, where it's a bit more trust. But I think that trust will get built over time as well, with this being more of a norm, hopefully.
Yeah.
And remember, this is not just about processing payments on web. We now are allowed to message people, and we can message them in so many different ways and forms. And it can be a relevant offer, it can be a relevant upgrade. We can control this now. So I think suddenly, email marketing is back. It's never gone anywhere, but now it's getting even bigger, and we can push with web offers and stuff. Like, no one will tell us no until they do. But for now, I think for the next few weeks, we can totally do that and see how that flies. And I think LTV has to go up, at least for the nearest future. Then we'll see how the curves, even up. But this is going to be really exciting.
Yeah. All right, guys. Was the last question? There are a lot of questions in the chat, which I think we briefly covered. Thanks to John, who answered most of them. Appreciate it. Let's finalize it. So we see some big changes coming soon. We already see some big applications like Spotify releasing new versions with third-party payments, which is crazy. And I think in the next couple of days, maybe weeks, we're gonna see what will Apple do.
Get your app update in quickly. Get ahead of the flow.
Yeah. So test it, prepare. I think we never know what to expect. These are some opinions and thoughts from top industry experts, I would say. So please subscribe to us and follow, and share your ideas. It's really interesting what you're going to do. I honestly think that we'll have 3 channels: native iOS, third-party iOS, and web to app. So it's going to be big, and as a team, as Adapting Funnel Fox, we're going to be prepared for it. So next week we're releasing a third-party payments support on iOS. So it's going to be right soon, within a couple of days. It's going to be ready. So test, try, and yeah. Anyone wants to add anything?
I just would like to add one more thing, that it's open new opportunity, a new future with a lot of flexibility and freedom, what to experiment, what to do. So, and I think the quick wins will go to those who just experiment fast and boldly, and a lot of raising a lot of tools and automation will be in future, and tools like Adaptive and Funnel Fox will be rising. I think that more and more, because a lot of automation, a lot of handling, a lot of tiny details with all the stuff, cancellation flow and so on. So will be should be handled, and a lot of opportunity for all parties.
Yeah, and definitely check Paddle iOS integration and singular attribution all together with the Web Funnels Club from Kirill. So it's a good combination if you want to start monetizing your application in web or web to app or whatever. And thank you for joining. So we're going to send the recording pretty soon. Thank you guys for a wonderful chat.
Great chat.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Maybe.